The rumours are true. George Russell is the new Nico Rosberg. The driver hailing from Kings Lynn has been pressing the issue of who is on top of the Silver Arrow's priority list, and after his Qatar Grand Prix crash with Lewis Hamilton, we might finally have our answer. Ready to see who's number one at Mercedes? Renowned F1 commentator Peter Windsor has remarked that Mercedes currently finds itself in a tough spot, with Lewis Hamilton and George Russell behind the wheel. Windsor anticipates that incidents akin to the one witnessed in Qatar may happen more often, saying that such clashes are a consequence of transitioning from drivers like Valtteri Bottas or Sergio Perez. The intense head-to-head battles between Hamilton and Russell at Suzuka foreshadowed the dramatic turn of events in Qatar, where the two drivers collided at the very first corner of the Grand Prix. In the aftermath of the incident, Hamilton, who was forced out of the race, shouldered the responsibility and maintained that the incident hadn't adversely impacted his relationship with Russell. Hamilton, commencing the race from the second position on the softer tyre compound, attempted an outside manoeuvre on Russell, who was on mediums. This left Russell with limited options and resulted in the collision. Notably, both drivers had prior discussions about the race start scenario and their mutual intent to collaborate, which makes the incident all the more unexpected. Windsor points out that this is a conversation Russell wouldn't even consider entertaining. As a result, Mercedes now faces a situation where they are gaining momentum, but the control over their drivers appears to be slipping through their fingers, like hands off a wheel. Talking about the matter at hand in a YouTube video, he said, "Shades of Lewis Hamilton and Nico Rosberg at Barcelona 2016. It's a much deeper thing. This comes right back to the choice of George Russell as the other driver in the Mercedes, because in this situation, when you've got Lewis Hamilton, who's never going to be anything other than the 7 times world champion who wants to win a Grand Prix if the car is capable of letting him win it, if you've got Lewis in that car, you definitely need to have somebody like a Valtteri Bottas or a Sergio Perez in the other car. If you're going to have them next to one another on the grid, which they were, P2 and P3, and you're going to put one of them, i.e. the guy in P3, on soft tyres and the other guy on mediums, because what you would then need to do, what Lewis would need to do is before the race, they would need to say to the other driver, look, Lewis is on the soft tyre, he may well try something on the outside, so whatever you do, stay on the inside and make sure that you two do not touch one another. And you could have said that to a Valtteri, you could have said that to a Sergio Perez, you could say that to a Carlos Sainz probably, if he was in a Mercedes and Lewis was the other driver, but you can't say it to a George Russell. George Russell is too much of a racer. He's a proven winner already. There is absolutely no way in the world that George Russell would have accepted that. That accident was a straight result of choosing to have a driver, an aggressive, fast racer like George Russell, in the other car. Just imagine if Mercedes were in the running for the World Championship in any given situation in any given year. Imagine what it'd be like between Lewis and George Russell. The management have absolutely no control over them now, and there is nothing they can do about it. Because there is no way you could ever say to George Russell, Lewis may well try to pass you on the outside, let him go. It's never going to happen. It's not a conversation that George would even begin to listen to. Russell, on a personal level, has labelled his season as a complete disaster. But he's made it clear that his primary objective is to collaborate with Hamilton in securing the second place in the Constructors' Championship for Mercedes. Nevertheless, it's evident that incidents like the recent shunt have a substantial adverse impact on the team's standings. What's even more concerning for Mercedes, according to Windsor, is that they themselves have paved the way for this situation. Consequently, they should brace for more on-track collisions between their drivers in the future. Windsor emphasised this point, saying, I'm not saying you want a number 2 who's slow. I'm just saying you need a driver who is compliant and can work with the star driver you've got. Whether it's Lewis Hamilton, Max Verstappen, George Russell, a star in his own right, Oscar Piastri for sure, Charles Leclerc. And that's the problem. You don't have that at Mercedes. It's an absolute gunfight, and we saw that today, and it won't be the last time that sort of thing will happen either. At the beginning of Sunday's Qatar Grand Prix, both Lewis Hamilton and George Russell held a promising position in the race, but their fortunes took a sharp downturn at the very first corner, where an incident involving the two teammates brought Hamilton's race to an untimely end. Russell, on the other hand, managed to soldier on but faced a challenging catch-up race. In hindsight, engineer Andrew Chauvelin reflects on the team's strategy in light of these events. Chauvelin shed light on the rationale behind Hamilton's soft tyre choice, explaining that it enabled Hamilton to rapidly close the gap to Russell and make an overtaking attempt. Hamilton offered his apologies after the race, and it appears that the two drivers swiftly reconciled any differences. Internally, things appear to be harmonious within the team. This incident has raised speculation from former F1 driver Ralf Schumacher, who suspects that Mercedes might be inclined to implement team orders in the future. Chauvelin delves into the team's strategic approach and mentions that team orders in advance of the Qatar Grand Prix were not included in their original plan. He said, "Of all the drivers on the grid, Lewis had the most limited options available in terms of his race tyres, and in particular in terms of the medium compound. Given that George had got a very good start with the soft the day before, it also went very well on the safety car restarts. We elected to start Lewis on the soft tyre because of that better grip off the line. Due to the obligatory pit stops required in Qatar, the choice between soft and medium tyres for Hamilton's W14 didn't significantly affect their durability. The team thoroughly deliberated their plans with both drivers, and as Chauvelin mentioned, it was apparent to all involved that there existed a possibility for Lewis to secure a more favourable start and promptly overtake Russell. That was always considered, but they were aware they were on different strategies. It was important they didn't lose time racing each other, and that was clear, but we weren't imposing team orders in the race. What happened at turn 1 was simply a mistake." Mercedes themselves described their beginning in the Qatar Grand Prix as about as challenging as a first lap could be. This description followed the dramatic collision between Lewis Hamilton and George Russell, who were fiercely contending for position. Although the race stewards decided not to penalise either of their drivers for the incident, Mercedes couldn't help but contemplate missed opportunities, with Russell managing to salvage a fourth-place finish in the subsequent damage control efforts. In response to the unfolding drama, Mercedes Communications Director Bradley Lord commented, "In the pre-race strategy meeting, we discussed the likely tyre offset between the two drivers and how that would be handled. Obviously, what happened was not part of the plan, but certainly not intentional from either side. I think rule number 1 for any racing team is that the two cars don't make contact. That is something the drivers have bought into, just like every other member of the team is as well. To be one car in the gravel, one in the pit lane, and then plumb last at the end of lap 1 is about as badly as a first lap can go. But how we deal with it, we'll talk about it behind closed doors. I think both drivers have been very magnanimous afterwards, and we'll talk about it and then put it behind them. I think the feature of this season has been how well they've worked together to try and lead the team back from the difficult position in which we started with the car. And I'm sure they'll continue to do that for the last 5 races and hopefully secure P2 in the Constructors' Championship. Mercedes find themselves in a fierce competition for the second position in the Constructors' standings as they approach the final 5 rounds of the season. Currently, they are holding a 28-point advantage over Ferrari, who are in the 3rd position. The question now is, will all this garage drama be their downfall? Tell us what you think in the comments section down below. And, as always, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Thanks for watching.